investment program, very similar to what we use home for the development of single-family infill and rental housing. This has just been a new twist, a new pot of funding made available by HUD, specifically for projects to address homelessness in our community. So the city did receive an allocation of just over $5.5 million in Home ARP funds, but for this particular project, we actually expect that is it's only going to be maybe a sixth of the funding that's necessary. So the city hired a consultant last year to assist us through the Home ARP planning process, development strategies. We did consultations with many stakeholders in our community, and the plan that was brought forward and submitted to HUD for approval was the city to lead an effort to construct a project, and I say project, it could be a campus style, could be a single building that entails housing, shelter, and navigation services. So as you can imagine, this is going to be a quite complex project, with the city only participating in the actual operations of the navigation center and contracting later for property management and shelter service operations. So this is still at a very, very high level. It's part of the reason why we want to bring in the developer partner early on to work with us in trying to identify the best path forward, whether that's adaptive reuse of an existing structure or ground up construction, and what that would look like as far as developers know, the construction timeline, construction services, as well as financing. All of the financing is, we have a good portion, including the $5.5 million in Home ARP, some other ARPA funds, expected proceeds from the sale of other properties. But we would expect this project to be a low-income housing tax credit project, likely 4%. We're not necessarily even set on that. Could be a 9% competitive project. And as we do think this is going to be greater than a $30 million project in all. So the package was put out, kind of did outlines much of what I just summed up in 2 minutes. So again, not an RFP. This is an RFQ by design, by HUD's requirement. HUD requires that when we solicit a developer partner or our architectural partner, that has to be done based on qualifications as an RFQ and not an RFP. So some people have been a little bit confused in that this is not our normal RFP process that goes forward. Because it is, and the scoring and the selection criteria are going to be based on qualifications, history, rather than by a price. And when we talked about this has been a bit challenging. It would be very difficult to determine any type of price until the project is designed. So you can understand why HUD has us go through the process that we do in selecting a developer partner based on their qualifications and experience, rather than by price. Because if we're talking, there's a big difference between a 100-unit project and a 200-unit project. So at this point, I want to open up the floor, obviously, to answer any questions that you may have about the RFQ.
You can also submit questions to the chat if you'd like. I'm monitoring the chat.
Looked like Eric was trying to pipe in.
So I'm just trying to get educated on this project, not knowing really anything. But is there like city-owned ground or ground that the city has in mind to kind of do a project like this, that does not consist of an existing structure?
No, we have not identified a city-owned parcel specifically to locate this project, no. So that would be part of that exercise in working with the city, is to identify an appropriate site.
So the information
Mhm.
that's due back on the 14th of April, is that kind of, I mean, without a site, is that kind of somebody putting an idea together and then locating the site later on, or?
The idea is the site would be located later on as a collaborative effort between the city and the developer partner.
Is there a project that's been done across the country or multiple projects that a person could go to, kind of a reference of what you guys are looking for?
There has been, obviously, there's other tax credit projects that have layers of services provided in them. The whole concept of non-congregate shelter is pretty new. It's not, you know, when we talk about it too, we're like, it's almost housing units. To qualify as non-congregate shelter, a unit has to have personal bathroom space, doesn't have to have kitchen space. So you think about it as either like a hotel room or maybe like a hospital room that is space for a bed and belongings with a private bathroom, but nothing else. So it's not hugely different than housing itself. So you know how in a lot of projects you're going to have a mix of different bedroom sizes. Well, this is almost like a little smaller than a studio because it doesn't necessarily have any kitchen facilities. But could be built and structured very similar as far as unit counts and size, et cetera, as a housing unit. Beyond that, the NAV services is really, at this point, it's about having office space to bring in different partners, whether that be, you know, counseling, mental health, the state for SNAP's office. So it's really office space. Not uncommon in a tax credit project that you would have, you know, office space, community space, those kind of things. So it's not hugely out of the realm. There are other full campus type projects across the country. You'll see a lot of folks in Wichita referencing Haven for Hope. This is not to that scale, not at all. That's a $100 million project done more than 12 years ago. It's huge in scale. That's not quite what we're talking about here. We don't believe we could support something. We know we couldn't operationally support something as large as San Antonio does with Haven for Hope, but it's got some similarity in that they have all of those type of service and then more at a single site. And we're not sold that this is all in one building, but it could be campus style, multiple buildings on attractive land or near walking distance from one another. So, hope that helps.
Yeah, I just pulled that up. So that's more of a almost a miniature college campus setup.
Yes.
Like.
Been there. It is huge.
Yeah.
It's very, very impressive. Most of their funding was philanthropy through donations for the construction. And then they have a huge operating budget that we know can't be supported in our community. So we're not looking to go that large for sure.
Okay. I think the only thing that'd fit our niche is standalone individual, but I don't know if that's going to be as efficient as building a multi-tenant style. So that's why I kind of want to get educated on what you guys were thinking.
And we're not set, like I said, we're pretty open. It's just without us having gone through a process to select a partner, you really can't have conversations to flush through a lot of this without it giving somebody more of an advantage over someone else. And that's why we're kind of putting this step ahead of that.
Okay. So in a nutshell, though, you're going to have an office building of some.
Unmute and speak. Deanne, if you're trying to speak, oh, there you go.
Oh, that's okay. I just was waiting for Eric to finish.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
Yeah, Eric was finished. He had another kind of follow-up office.
Eric, did you want to finish that statement before Deanne starts? We may have lost him. Eric, you're on mute.
Somehow I muted it. So.
That's okay.
So an off-type facility surrounded by kind of miniature studio apartments, is that kind of a possible option?
Right. Plus we want true apartments also. Okay. So it is 3 pieces. So offices, non-congregate shelter, which are like hotel room style, and then full units, whether, studios, 1-bedroom, mix, possibly larger. Like I said, we are still open on that, but we want to see all three of those components. And that's per the home ARP, and because we're bringing in other funding, this could expand to even more. We could consider that we want to have a congregate shelter too, so long as the funding that's funding that is not home ARP dollars, because it's not allowed by home ARP dollars. If that's what is determined is the need, that you'd really have NAV services, a congregate shelter, non-congregate shelter, and housing units all in close proximity. We're game for that too. We just know that under the funding specifically the $5.5 million in funding from home ARP will not support, it's not an eligible use to use it for the non-congregate shelter. And it's actually not an eligible use to build the offices, it is to provide those supportive services. So we would be pulling together other funding to support the construction of the NAV Center and possibly congregate shelter. We're still keeping this wide open to have further conversations with stakeholders in our community.
Okay.
Great. Deanne.
Thank you. So tell me more. Of course, I'm interested in the navigation center piece of this. When you say the city's going to operate it, does that mean that you're paying for the facilities kind of thing? Are you going to be programming? Tell me.
We would be working with partners to occupy the space, but coordinating that. And because this would be city owned at that point, they would just be coordinating those contracts for groups or individuals to operate within the building or buildings.
Let's see if I can follow up. So
yeah, we're not looking to we would have people positioned there to provide some services. The services we already provide. We're not looking to branch into providing the services, whether that's day shelter, night shelter, any of that. We leave that to those who do it well.
Okay, so great, thank you. But let me follow up. So when you say then the city would own it, does that mean that then you would pay for utilities and all of those kinds of costs, the administrative operating kind of things?
Exactly.
So if there was a day shelter there with the showers and those kinds of things, you would be paying for the water?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
As it's envisioned now. Again, we're still open to further conversations.
Sally, would we be paying for, would we be charging rent for those spaces or not?
It's possible. Yeah.
I am going to exit the meeting. I am interested in this project. I'm going to reach out to Dave Wells and a few other people and bounce some ideas off of them.
Great.
I
Thank
appreciate
you so
it,
much.
guys.
If you have any follow-up questions, you can send them to me and or Chris, and then we'll make sure that those get incorporated in the addendum that gets sent out for this. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Was there anybody else that had any further questions? Somebody says they're on hold. I've never seen that before. AP is on hold. Do you see that?
If they took another call, like if they've called in and took another call, that might be why it says that.
I've never seen that before. So, anybody else have any further questions? If not, again, just like I mentioned to Chris there, if something occurs to you after this call, please feel free to reach out, and we will ensure to include any questions and answers in an addenda that's sent out to the RFQ. Chris, Hazlett, did you need to close with anything else?
Nope, that was it. I was going to say the same thing. Yes, submit any questions. Submit any questions you have in writing to both Sally and I. That way, then we can answer in writing, and then also then if it needs to be an addendum, we'll do it that way as well. Yep, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you for taking your time. And again, this is a really exciting opportunity for our community. Once we get a developer partner on board, we'll be able to have some more in-depth conversations. Thank you.